I want you to be better. This whole community is, in a lot of ways, pathetic. I hear non-stop whining about Cymanti being overpowered. They're not. But I'm about to make them a problem. You see, I'm a profoundly evil man, and I've played a lot of Cymanti. I played 1v1s against other players until I broke 2000 elo. Do you know how long that takes? If I play someone at 1300 elo and win, I will gain +0 at the end of the game. If I lose to someone rated 1700, a single time, I lose 30 points. To get to 2000, it wasn't good enough for these strategies to be strong. They had to be consistent and so strong that I always won, no matter what spawns looked like. So, sit back, relax, and watch me become as dominating as I possibly can. Or, sit up, take notes, and try to get a gigabrain like me, sim to win. So this isn't the only way you can play the game. This is just how I chose to play. This is how to win. First up, I played my games on small dry lands. It's already long been my favorite map type for 1v1s, because larger maps are more about Rider Road's expansion than tactics. If you already have 70% of the map locked down before you even meet your opponent, it doesn't really matter what tactics they're coming out with. The games are kind of over before you even start playing with the person. On a small map, the tactics are way more diverse, and I find myself actually playing the game. This is important for us as Cymanti, because tactics are how we're gonna win. On larger maps, we suffer. Our hexapods are just not as fast as Rider Roads. Here though, on small and especially tiny maps, Cymanti is an oppressive tyrant. But no, the reason isn't just hexapods. See, Cymanti are actually an incredible economic powerhouse. Tribes are generally categorized in two groups. The few, powerful, and feared that upgrade their capital on turn 0, and then the losers that don't. They need to wait usually till turn 3. Cymanti is a tribe that breaks the mold and upgrades on turn 1. They start with an economic tech, and not only that, they have a guaranteed 6 population that can be harvested with that tech. They're already at level 3 on their capital. Fungi are some of the most densely packed population in the game, and completely unique to this tribe. 5 stars in and 3 population out is cheaper than any other starting tech. This is balanced by the fact that it takes multiple turns for the fungi to grow, but they can practically guarantee level 3 on any city that has a fungi. Cymanti's other mushroom doesn't leave much room for debate here either. The roads are still bought, despite lacking the aggressive capabilities of the human tribe's roads. Why? They're much better economically. Quite frequently, 5 stars in gets you 6 population out. Beyond these unique economic traits, Cymanti's other resources are just good. Fruits and animals are extremely common, allowing you to pierce anywhere through the tech tree you want. Everything works and it's up to you to optimize. When we play, we're going to be taking advantage of the fact that we're on a small map, and our #1 priority is going to be developing our economy instead of rapid expansion. Which means our shaman is going to duck out of the early game and go running to grab a lighthouse. Lighthouses compound and strengthen Cymanti's economic game considerably. They're even capable of becoming a turn 0 tribe. You definitely want to have one of these in your corner. But seriously, your shaman usually has time to boost 2 warriors before you go grab the lighthouse, allowing you to upgrade your capital a full turn sooner. The lighthouse and 2 fungi also gives you a pretty reliable 7 population, which means you're only on the hook for 5 more for a centipede if you get population growth. If that's too steep for you, despite the great animal and fruit rates they have, you can grab the other lighthouses really easily with explorers on your other cities, or pick a tier 2 tech that fits nicely into your game plan, forestry, roads, or mining all have a place, and you're at least going to have enough population for border growth. Most games I expect my centipede's going to come out turn 6 to 7. Some games though I don't get a centipede at all. My opponent resigns before I even get the chance. The reason we like the centipede so much is that early on a small map where right next to your opponent, and your shaman can boost it, you are going to meet and eat them. Your opponent is almost certainly not going to have the tools to deal with a centipede that early on. Beyond that, you're getting a level 5 city, which completes what is likely your first monument of the game, and gives you a ton of income to work with from your capital. You can also keep the income growing by dropping your monument on another low-level city of yours, or if your capital is feeling really greedy, you might even get 2 centipedes real early on. It's all setting you up for a nice game where all you gotta do is use all this income to train a ton of units, and then crush your opponent. If you've been following the guide well so far, congratulations! You've already won 70-80% of the games you're playing. But what do we do about those last 20% of the games? Learn this lesson and learn it well. If you're going to attack your opponent, you have to gain something from it. If you're attacking and all it's doing is closing that window of opportunity, don't attack. Sit down, wait, build up your army, gain something from attacking. But you might already see a problem here. If we have to stop and wait, our single centipede isn't enough to hold down a siege. What are we supposed to hold it down with? A single hexapod? No! We're going to use one of 2 units to start actually sieging their cities. Ketons or swordsmen. But really we're going to be talking about ketons. They're much easier to fit into your game plan in a tier 2 instead of tier 3 tech, and honestly, they're just better in the role they fill. Swordsmen, and especially boosted swordsmen, and double especially boosted swordsmen that take advantage of roads your opponent lays down, are nice to attack with, but you have to remember, you're Cymanti. You already have units capable of dealing damage. Ketons for us are more like dental fillings. Maybe they're a little expensive, they do a great job filling the holes they need to. Cymanti's units struggle pushing against an opponent with rider roads. Your opponents move the riders in, kill your hexapod, run out of range. Even your centipede isn't safe. 5 riders will just kill you, a centipede won't even kill a rider with retaliation damage like a giant does, and even a single attack means it's going to lose its boost. Rider roads is the most common way to beat Sim, and that's exactly why ketons are so great. Riders like to attack an enemy unit, walk away, heal any damage they might take, and repeat. Ketons don't give them time for that. For one, ketons deal a lot of retaliation damage. For another, they poison units who attack them. The Rider Roads player, used to smacking warriors and taking a single turn to heal, now has to wait that long just to get rid of poison, and then another 2 turns to heal off to full. Also, unlike with warriors, ketons are going to poison 3 of your enemy riders before they go down. They're great at crippling the best counterplay to Cymanti, and once your opponent's riders are gone, or backed up far enough, guess who can arrive to Chomp Town? Now, I already know some of you have started typing comments aghast that I didn't mention your favorite win condition. The Dumux, otherwise known as Big Thickums, is terrible, and here's why. But, on some occasions, when you find yourself with a surplus of stars and the need for the extra range provided by a Dumux, or if you already have free spirit from a ruin, they do function in the role as a wall breaker. They're able to push your enemy's giant hexapod wall back, a single square at a time. Let's go ahead and double dip real quick to show off why I find more use for swordsmen than Dumux. First, why swordsmen instead of ketons? In a game where your first centipede is locked behind a mine, sometimes it does just make sense to dip into smithery later on. Now watch as everything we've talked about in this video happens exactly. Our opponent gets impatient, pushes all of their units forwards in an attack that doesn't really accomplish much of anything, just to try to do some damage. And if you're serious about leveling up your sim game and figuring out those tactics for yourself, pause the video, figure out a way to kill the centipede, a Dumux, and both hexapods. Time's up. In that turn we see that smithery wasn't just great for the swordsman, but it also helped us with the 2 forges that produced 2 centipedes on that turn. Once we reached this position, with our opponent still up 2 whole cities to us, they recognized that our centipedes are not killable and simply resigned the game. The final piece of our puzzle here, and another reason we love Khitan so much, is that, aside from being the absolute best at shutting down any counterplay to Cymanti as mass production high defense units for you, they also open the way to get our attack going with cloaks. I mean, this is how you hold a siege. Like, just roll the montage.
Oh no!
Now, let me be perfectly transparent with you. The vast majority of your games are not going to involve cloaks. Only here as a nice option for us as wall breakers in the end game. Still though, you gotta admit, they are really good at that job, especially with a shaman to boost them and make it even more difficult for your opponent to shut them down. Now that I've told you the tips and tricks, it's time to show them off in a couple of games. A high ladder one where I crossed 2000 elo, and a typical game against a human tribe. In this game, our troubles start right away. I have to overcome something I assume many Cymanti players struggle with. That's right, an addiction to hexapods in the writing branch. Even our capital is telling us where to go.
Hexpod.
But I can't be thinking like that. Our opponent is Omaji. The writer guys, our worst enemies. Our shaman's going to dip north towards the lighthouse, a safer place outside of the map, while I pick up our first fungi. We're going to select a workshop, of course, and then grab our warrior and boost it. Zooming out a bit, we're pretty tucked into the northern corner of the map. So when our warrior goes ahead and discovers not just a village, but also a ruin, I'm ecstatic. Now it's time for one of the most classic debates in all of Polytopia. Ruin or city? This is something that's always going to depend on context, but here I'm going to choose the ruin because some of the top tier results, like stars, population, or a swordsman, all feel like they win the game on the spot. Even something lesser like hunting or orc probably mean we get our centipede a turn sooner, and even a tier down from that, climbing is still nice, even if it wouldn't be quite as good as the village. We're not going to be gaining a place to train units from, and especially warriors with defense bonuses. So the ruin doesn't help us exert our control over the map as directly as the village does. But if we went for the village, that would make it more difficult to pick up some techs that we're going to need in getting our centipede. So it is a little bit riskier, but we are going to go ahead and pick up the ruin here, and alright, we see their borders, but we can calm down. Nothing's happened yet. We advance our warrior forwards, and here, our shaman's actually going to move backwards. That's for reasons that the Polytopia Council has said I can't actually tell you, so you'll have to figure that one out for yourselves. The Polytopia Council did, however, say it was perfectly fine for me to show off my biggest blunder of all time over here. This is Jim, our first warrior. He has a wife, 2 children, and we're going to see if we've just killed him or not. Okay, well, of course. Now our situation is starting to look pretty dire. Our warrior isn't feeling like they have anywhere to explore, and with our opponent having riders that they might be able to bounce into our capital in the future, it's looking a little scary. In this position, I see 2 big options: walking our warrior east, or, what we actually do in the game, walking it straight onto the village. Even though we know that they have a 10 health rider here, and a 5 health rider in the fog. They are able to kick us off, however if they do, that means they're going to have to give up this ruin. What's more, because they have to attack with a 10 health rider first, so long as they don't have any more in the fog, they should only be able to step on the village with a 5 health rider, or something our 10 health warrior on capital can boost and kill. If they block, all the better. Our warrior kills that first rider, and then sieges. Plus, we'll start skirmishing over this ruin, instead of just giving it to our opponent, and this is time to roll back all the way to the beginning of the game. In any strategy where we're going to be rushing for a level 5 city, like we are with these centipede rushes, the number 11 is very important to keep in mind. That's how much population you're going to need to get a level 5 city. If we take a look at our resources, we have 3 population from each fungi for a total of 6, 3 fruits which get us to 9, and then 2 animals which take us all the way to 11. So, with just buying hunting, organization, and using the resources in our capital borders, with population growth, we can get our level 5 city and a centipede. Back to our current position, and that's the reason why we're not really too interested in getting the lighthouse. Regardless of if we get the lighthouse or not, it's looking like we're going to need hunting and org as our cheapest way to get a centipede. So now we wait to see if we're going to get in a complicated position where we tussle over the ruin and village, or if they just take it. And since this is a replay, we can actually go ahead and check out what they got from that ruin. Oh, they got farming. Haha, darn. Regardless, we finally locked down a village, and after buying hunting before capturing our second city, we're all set up for our turn 6 centipede on our capital. We take advantage of the vulnerable position our opponent's rider is in by attacking, we train our final warrior, and we just wait. The more riders we can get our opponent to train around our capital, the more targets we'll have for our centipede next turn. Ideally, most of our warriors live and give space for our centipede, and for its own part, the centipede will either repel their riders away and allow us to develop our economy, or if they don't pull back, our centipede can look at getting a segment and then taking the city between our 2 capitals. And everything goes perfectly. Our opponent's rider is blocked by a mixture of zone of control from our second city warrior and the forests to the west. But instead of using this as centipede bait, we're just going to use it as a way to slingshot our own warriors and push our expansion even further into the east. We pick up workshop instead of an explorer here. We already know where our opponent is. We're already going to push into that position in the west anyways. With the way fog is shaped around the city, we're expecting it to go maybe south instead of picking up tactically useful information. Because the explorer isn't looking too nice, and the difference between 8 and 9 stars per turn is a lot bigger than the difference between 30 and 31 stars per turn, we go ahead and pick up our workshop now. Again, remember 11s. On this city, with the 3 population from our monument, fungi, 4 population from fruits and animals, we're going to need forestry if we want to get a centipede, or border growth and some good luck. In either case, we're looking at a lot of stars that we're going to need. Because we're good Polytopia players doing our diligent score counting, we know that a crazy looking play like this, moving our centipede right into the enemy's territory, is safe. This intensifies all the pressure in the west. Our goal is to keep them from expanding and cripple their economy, preventing them from buying roads. If they want to deal with our centipede, they're going to have to buy a lot of riders. Speaking of, it's time to make our capital proud. We pick up our own hexapods. Briefly, we want to thank our centipede for its noble sacrifice. Although we are threatening a siege here, we're absolutely not certain if it's going to be able to hold or not. If it doesn't hold, the hope is that the centipede acts as a shield, allowing our hexapods to start terrorizing their position in the west, while at the same time our warriors in the east are allowed to expand. If we can pick up our second centipede in the middle, we give up some of our best units, but we create a position that we can actually play from. So, all that's left to do is wait and see if our centipede survives this turn. And perfectly! Our opponent throws a single damaged rider at it. Our centipede has suffered negligible injuries, and we decide that it's time to advance everything. Warriors push eastward, hexapods and centipedes go to the west. Because border growth isn't an option on our second city with the vision we've gathered, and looking at the resources on the third city, we decide to pick up forestry at this turn. Lumber huts are expensive, but remember, you're always allowed to chop some forests. And so, we're left here. Just like last turn, we have to worry about our centipede's safety. Is he going to survive? Is he going to be okay? And he makes it out alive! Something we noticed from last turn, since we can track opponents' units through the fog a little bit. We know where those 2 riders ended up. We can gain the required vision by advancing this boosted hexapod through, hopping off the city, and gaining a segment. Since they've demonstrated so few riders around their west in the last few turns, it seems like a safe bet, but that's the kind of play that we might do at the end of the turn. Before that, we're going to go ahead and start upgrading our new cities. We want the most tactically important parts about our turn to be at the end, to give our opponent less time to react. Unfortunately, before we even get to use our second centipede, our opponent resigns. Zooming out to take a look at the whole map, we can see why. Our first centipede was enough to take the city in the west. They're not ready to deal with a second centipede in the center of the map. And that's what most games solo laddering are going to look like. Short, simple, and easy enough that I can break down every single thing that was going on in my head. Since this next game is slightly longer and slightly more complex, we are not going to see the 4-hour breakdown. Unless this video gets 100,000 likes. Anyways, this is our opponent, Dr. Mung, a typical Cymanti sweat. Over 1800 elo, 6900 games, and no friends. We spawn in the east, they spawn in the west. We collect a nice ruin and get roads. After we take an explorer in the middle of the map, the game can really get started. We both have eyes on each other and realize we're going to be targeting these cities. What you should notice at this level is that their moves are pretty abstract. The number one priority is controlling space on the map. We pick up our third explorer of the game and see that we're probably stuck on the cities we have for a while. Shuffle my own units around the best I can, but unfortunately, they had a hexapod in one of these two tiles of fog. We also get to see their general strategy as they keep spamming hexapods. With our capitals half underwater and lacking really good resources, and the slightly larger map size, this kind of thing makes sense. We're going to use roads here to pick up our centipede soon. While I go ahead and heal our units. One of the most important ideas here is a tactic called overloading. We can't kill all these hexapods, so we lose some space in the northeast after they move like this. After picking up forestry, we're able to get our centipede before they get theirs out. Our problem is still us getting out expanded though, and with how many explorers we took, we can't really claim to be playing economically either. They get their centipede quickly too. Our strategy is to pick up strategy, trying to use ketons to advance our position. And right after, it's time for diplomacy. Dr. Mung, wanting to help us out, gets border growth on this city. We have play on two sides of the board, fighting over this contested, unclaimed village, and using our cloaks on this border growth city. So if there's centipede on the city, our Cloak Attack loses some of its bite. They can gain back some defensive resources by getting new segments on their centipedes every turn that we infiltrate them with cloaks. Still the time to make something happen though. We pick up the techs that give our daggers defense bonuses and go for it. Our ketons start advancing. This is the attack we've been waiting to pull off the whole game, and now it's finally happening with the ketons at the front. Eyeing another centipede, we go ahead and pick up mining. We've basically abandoned the unclaimed village here to push in on these two cities in the south. Their defensive play around this area is too strong for us. They start taking out all of our units. They've protected their hexapod capturing the unclaimed village and gotten dangerously close with their centipede. Defending here is necessary, but it will take attention away from our attack in the south. With our city count being 4 to their 6, soon to be 7, it looks like there's no way we can win. Unless they train the worst unit in the game. Suddenly, our chances are restored. We push our units into their border growth city, while we go ahead and pick up the south city, before giving them a real quick lesson in defense.
Ow.
The hexapod looks safe with none of their units even close to approaching it, but they completely clear out our position. Despite being so terrible, the destructive power of the Dumux isn't really a joke. And after that one turn, it feels like everything's collapsing. Our ketons, and cloaks, and centipedes, and hexapods got us the city, but they're going to lose it immediately. We started with 4 cities, and we're going to lose with 4 cities. There's not much we can do. We don't give up, though. We try to occupy our opponents with one more cloak attack on their border growth city, before using our centipedes to go ahead and advance in the northeast. Their attack keeps building. They keep getting more and more active until...
Я устал бороться, мне нужно провиниться. Каждый день за днем. Уходите. I have to come to terms with some facts. I am a profoundly evil person. I don't love their unique tactics. I love that they had no counterplay. everyone is already playing this or hates playing against Sim. Trying to convince people to cool, and for what? I have a dead shaman and I'm losing to Dumox. Я только хотел быть счастливым. And in the end, we won. It looks absolutely ludicrous to say that we're winning here. This is the cost of Dumux. How much does a Dumux cost? It costs you the game.